All right, we are live. Hey guys, if you notice a distinct lack of AJ Pickett on the screen, yeah, I noticed too. I don't really know who he is. I hope he shows up at some point. Um, anyway,
Yeah.
we're still hoping, we have our fingers crossed on that one. Anyway, so I'm here with at least Alyssa.
Hello.
That's like not a good way to say it.
Oh, shucks. I think I referred to myself as on Jack's live stream as the Harmony Ginger we have at home.
No, you didn't.
I did. Listen, I that's like my favorite way to introduce myself on some of these. Like they couldn't get Elven Maiden, so I had to do.
No, don't say that. Don't say that about yourself. You have a completely different type of online presence than I do. We
That's
do
true.
different stuff. You have your own unique stuff that you're talking about that I'm not talking about, and we
That's
are
fair.
completely different in a lot of ways.
I mean, that's
Don't say
true.
that.
Like I'm a fake red hair and we both have glasses, but we're definitely completely. I'm joking. But anyways, no, I'm excited to be back. It's
Yeah,
it's it's been a hot minute.
right?
Yeah.
So before we get started, without AJ, we're really hoping AJ shows up at some point here.
AJ, where'd you go?
This is funny because this was like his idea for the topic. Um, but it be what it be.
Yeah.
Um, do not say Timu Harmony Ginger. Do not. It's
Walmart
not
brand.
fair.
It's fine.
No,
I
no,
think I
not fair. I
also
don't like
referred
it.
to myself as like secretly William Defoe in a wig at one point.
Right. So we have a lot of like names for you now.
Yeah.
So I guess I know most people here know who you are, but in case they don't, you have a new book out. So
Yeah.
quickly give us the rundown.
So my name's Alyssa Hazel. I am an author of like weird fiction, speculative fiction, that kind of thing. I have eight books out right now, and I'm working on my ninth. Recently released the sequel to my first sci-fi thriller, The Second Initiative, set 5 years after the first, and it's been going pretty well. And if you're interested in that or an audiobook version, the audiobook version is currently in production right now. So I'm excited to release that soon. Um, a little bit of my background with TTRPGs. My first game was Castles and Crusades at the age of 8. My dad had 5 daughters, which is the perfect size for for a gaming table. And I've been with the hobby since then. I don't play as much D&D, which I think surprises people, but I have played everything from Savage Worlds to the hero system to my current game is Pathfinder 1E on Thursday nights. Um, so oddly enough, I've had I think I've the complete opposite experience of a lot of people where I've played everything but D&D, the old school D&D. But I'm just happy to kind of be here and share that experience and just talk with Harmony for a little bit.
And we are going to be talking about what it's like to have women in the table and how to run for women if you need to run differently for it. And yes, this was AJ's topic, so I really hope he shows up, man. I've said that like 3 times. But man, you reminded me. I have a really embarrassing experience with Savage Worlds. And I feel like I owe them, I really feel like I owe it to them to like buy their books now because I boycotted them for a long time because they blocked me on Twitter. But they didn't block me on Twitter. It was another game entirely.
Oh no.
It was the company that made Salvage Worlds that blocked me on Twitter.
You
And
know,
so I was like, yeah, I'm not going to play Savage Worlds for like a long time because of that. And I feel like I owe them now because,
yeah. The
yeah.
yeah, the Troll Horde games I think are kind of my secret favorite um right now because they follow me. But no, I Castles and Crusades is a system I've been wanting to get back to for a while because I keep telling people about it. But everybody that I know wants to play things anything but Castles and Crusades. Like we played Star Wars, like one of the Star Wars RPGs recently. We're on Pathfinder now. It's just like, well, we could play, or it's before that was Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and just like, well, one day I will return home to the verdant pastures of Castles and Crusades, because I haven't played it in a while, and I just have um this like Watership Down esque vision in my head of one day playing it again and entering this high, lowly place where I can just relax and stretch out, and it'll just be perfect. And then, oh, my character will die for a session. So, I
So,
mean,
so you said you had how many sisters?
I have four.
And your dad ran games for all of you.
Yeah. The best part is that now it is a tradition that around between Christmas and the New Year's, he actually runs a one shot for everybody, all the adults in the family. So that's our um, all five girls, spouses, uh, all gather around the table. So it's a usually, how many people is it now? It is, and my mom. I'll play a Lord of the Rings flavored one shot of Barbarians of Lemuria, which is another really fun system. If you haven't got the chance to play it, it's a 2D, it's a D6 styled system that primarily runs on 2D6, but it includes other dice as well. That's very like not quite cinematic, but very like fast paced, actiony kind of thing. And if you want to break from like super crunchy games like Pathfinder, it's a great like palate cleanser. I don't
Okay.
know how well it plays in like a full campaign, but I do know that it's at least fun for a little jaunt to hack and slash things for a bit.
Um, and somebody here asked, "What is the difference between Castles and Crusades and D&D?" Castles and Crusades is much more like the older versions of D&D. It's somewhat similar to OD&D. Not
Yes.
It's mechanically different, but it's about the same in weight.
There's a lot of, they were one of the companies I believe that were actually affected by the OGL
Hmm.
change that happened. Was it 2019 when that happened? Like somewhere in there, 2019, 2020, 2021, somewhere in those like 3 years.
I think 2021.
Yeah. So they were one of the companies that were affected by that, and they re-released editions after that that took away a lot of those elements so they could remain independent, from what I understand.
Okay.
Um, Castles and Crusade is very much older school, but it also includes a bunch of new classes. I think like the Illusionist and a couple of other class variants that in I think some versions of D&D would be like a multi-class kind of thing or a subclass. It's like a completely new class of its own. It also includes something called the Siege Engine, which adds in another part of a unique element to the system. But it has been a while, and my rose-colored glasses are definitely on. So, but I recommend people at least check it out if they're itching to get away from the stuff going on right now with like, not to get into any of that, but like the WotC stuff. If you want something similar, but you want to get into something that already has a lot of pre-established lore and a lot of books, I would recommend, because Troll Lord Games are just a nice company that haven't, as far as I know, done gamers any
Yeah.
wrong. So,
Nah,
uh,
Troller games are solid in my book.
yeah,
Um, now, real quick to address something in chat. If I had AJ Pickett locked in my basement, you guys would know because he would be here. So I believe we have like proof now that
yeah.
there is nobody locked in my basement. And if there was someone locked in my basement, it is not AJ Pickett. I think we
The
can
question
confirm
is,
that.
if there was
Um,
somebody locked in your basement, who would it be?
I don't have to answer that.
That's
Um,
fair.
I will invoke my right to remain silent. All right.
Fair enough.
So, um, back to the actual kind of topic of the stream, and I think we have a good panel of two for this now. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
be more participative in the discussion than I thought I was, but that's okay. We are here to talk about like women in games, and I know women at TTRPGs specifically. This isn't about video games, so there are some statistics now that say like 40% of people who play TTRPGs are women, which is wild to me. I don't know. Do you believe that?
I would believe it. At our gaming group, my current Pathfinder game, we have two women in the group, myself and a gal named Amy. And we play half sisters. She's a half elf, I'm a full elf. So it's a lot of fun. But sorry, I didn't realize that my phone was.
You're good.
It was literally alerting me that the stream had started.
Well, it did its job.
It did. It did. All right. Let me mute that. Okay. Thank you. All right. But besides that, when I was in college as well in like 2016, 2017, we're just getting started, there were a lot of women at the D&D clubs and things like that we had on campus. So I don't think they were the majority, but there was a significant number of women present. I think that a lot of the I'm not sure. This could just be like a sort of a pin thought sort of thing. I'm wondering if the sort of introduction of a lot more narrative based games as opposed to more crunchy based games has affected sort of women's participation.
I think that's entirely 100% correct. Yeah. Because I think at the beginning of this conversation, something I want to do is kind of establish that this is an inconvenient truth for some people, but I think it is a truth that there is a difference between men and women in average behavior, in interests, in the way we relate to people. Like there's always been kind of the adage that women are interested in people, men are interested in things. On average, I do think that is true. Obviously there are individual cases that are not, that don't fall in line with that. But I do think that men being interested in more things and sometimes more number crunching armies and ruling kingdoms, men tend to be interested more in that part of the game, whereas women a lot of times will focus on social interactions with NPCs. And I believe that speaks to the core of a difference between the average man and the average woman. And I think that's I think you hit the nail on the head there with what you just said. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, and I'm kind of a similar opinion where I personally believe that, well, I've always kind of been of the opinion, kind of just zooming back for a second, that there is a wide plethora of TTRPGs out there in the world right now, which is great because that means that there are a variety of different games for a variety of different people. And there's a lot of different tables for a lot of different players interested in that kind of thing. But I think that it's very interesting how different RPGs attract different like demographics and that sort of thing. I think 5e as well, when it was released, was 5e was 2014, I believe.
Yeah, 2014.
Yeah. Now, I got into college around 2016, and I'm wondering if... Now, I know that there were plenty of women in the space pre that, and I'm wondering how much of that, in combination with things like Critical Role, and more of like this building into sort of TTRPGs being in like the public eye, got more women interested in it. It made it less of like, oh... Because I think that for a guy to be into TTRPGs pre back in the day might have been a little odd, but I think for women especially, it would have been even more unusual to be like in that space, if that made sense.
I think it does. So I actually went to college actually right before you. I think I graduated about the time that you got into college. And it was like what you were describing was like not my experience because my experience in my college game group was there were a few girls around, but they did not play the games. The games being played in the college game group that I was in were when I got there were Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. um, the, the girls in the group would kind of hang out on the periphery and be friends with the guys, but they would not play the games. And I so what I would do is I would like bring board games to the gaming meetups, and I'd like try and so I would always ask women first. I would always ask the girls to play first. And I was always big on like trying to bring as many girls in as possible because I figured, the guys will come in, right? But
Yeah.
I want there to be like a bigger female presence here just because I don't want the intimidation factor, right? Because a lot of times, if you do have a group that is mostly male, if it's a public group, and it's mostly male, there is kind of an intimidation factor for like a girl coming into that. And you're not only afraid of the guys because, like, yeah, sometimes guys will like make a pass at you or like they'll
Yeah.
and do some unwanted things sometimes, but you're not only afraid of the guys, you're afraid of the other girl in the group a lot of times. I don't know if you've experienced that.
It
But
I think my
mhm,
situation was unique in that I started off pre-college. A lot of my gaming, usually one or two of my sisters were in the group.
yeah.
So my first couple games outside of my was my dad's gaming group letting us kind of hang in there. So like 13, looking back now, bless them for their patience for having three girls, all in their teenage years or like approaching it, like being present at the table playing hero with them. Like
Hmm.
there's probably a lot of patience involved. And just thinking back now, bless them, because I remember the first character death I ever had where I got close to, I'm like, my character's dying, like that kind of thing. And by the time I got into college, was like, okay, I work on the days when my dad's game normally meets up. I can't do that anymore. So, um, hanging out, trying to meet up with the college crowd, I was like, okay, it's 2016. By then, the 5e fever had hit, and that was pretty much all anyone was playing. I think it was that and maybe Call of Cthulhu. That was the big game at the time, and
Mm.
uh, I I don't know if it's like a correlation or a causation, but I think 5e really opened the doors to maybe more women wanting to join. Um, or
I think
or
that's
I'm not quite sure.
mhm.
Uh, do you
I
think?
think that's pretty
Did you kind of
accurate.
observe that? Yeah, and I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but
I would say 5e opened the door to it a lot. I think there's kind of been a little bit of a push to make games like friendlier to women, and you can say that's good or it's bad, but I'm just
yeah,
saying it's what has happened.
yeah, and
Now, go
I
ahead.
think part of that is kind of another uncomfortable truth is that women do a lot of buying. To quote Dave Chappelle from The Nutty Professor, women be shopping, or something like that. I forget what I think that was what he said. Women typically are willing to spend more, and that's why like a lot of, not to potentially bring in like outside topics, but why a lot of traditional publishers are focusing in on like women's literature right now is like women are doing like the majority of the buying in terms of books. So I think that when it came to um 5e, when they realized, hey, like a lot of women do like buying things, it's like, okay, maybe they started noticing that women are entering the spaces more. It might have been sort of uh, maybe a catch 22 where I'm not sure whether they noticed it first or if that, but there was definitely women tend to do that more. So I
Yeah,
think
I
maybe they're coming in and they wanted to encourage more women to come into the space and get more invested because women do like the clack clack rocks as much as the. Not saying that big dice caused all of this, but I'm pretty sure men aren't buying the pink sparkle unicorn dice. But I have at least one sparkle pink set
Um,
in my bag right now.
yeah,
Um,
I think that's actually a really good point. That's one that I hadn't really considered much of, but yeah, I I do think that women are an extremely profitable market because you see all the paraphernalia that they sell for D&D, and a lot of them, yeah, they're marketed to men, but you also have like groups of guys, and this may or may not be significant, but you have groups of guys like the Bro SR who push like almost a minimalist philosophy in games. They say, you know, all you need is the PHB, the DMG, and you're good, and the monster manual, right? And that's all you need. You don't need to buy anything else. You can make your whole module with that, or whole adventure with that.
yeah.
And so the fact that there are these groups out there pushing minimalism, and they're, I want to say they're mostly male groups, but I also, yeah, I think that women are more likely to buy things because when you see that like cute little owlbear plush on the shelf, is that being marketed to men? No.
Yeah.
And so that entirely makes sense. Um,
But
so
as you saw D&D becoming more and more mainstream, part of that is like Critical Role coming in. Part of that is um like and conventions too, like Gen Con. Um they probably families are probably a huge market for them going into that because like they want the families coming in. They want moms to feel comfortable in these spaces because if mom isn't comfortable, dad's not going to bring the kids. If the kids aren't like if mom's not comfortable bringing the kids, the chances of dad being able to go maybe come down a little bit. So if you want to have the whole family go, which is a great way to kind of build those nostalgic memories and want them to come back the years after years, which is, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it is a thing that happens is like families and children are a huge market
oh
in
yeah.
terms of the gaming community. Um, and I'm pretty sure that leading up to COVID, Gen Con's numbers were going way up. Like Gen Con and Origins, um, Origins a little bit more. They're very like they have a lot of family friendly specific activities. They have entire a lot of their games are targeted at under 8 or E for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Like
Yeah, last time I
it's
was at Gen Con was 2016, and that was the year I went there and said, "This is too much. There's too many
yeah.
people here. I don't want to exist in this space. I get
Mhm.
overwhelmed by like so many people around."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just way too crowded for me. And real quick before we continue, I need to address a couple super chats. First of all,
Mhm.
thank you. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. Your support is appreciated. And Doc Flamingo says, I started gaming in 1980. I'd say it was 20 to 1 male at the time, but dropped to maybe 10 to 1 within just the first 2 years. By 95, when I dropped out of the hobby for a while, it was 5 to 1. It's more than 5 to 1 now. So um, I think that trend has entirely continued. I didn't mean to put that back up. There we go. I think that trend has definitely continued. And
Yeah.
we're kind of in a hobby now where it used to be a men's only hobby, and more women are coming into it. And on one side of the coin, this is a good thing because it means, you know, it makes it more accessible to children and families, and it means there are more players. But on the other hand, is something lost when you go from a almost entirely single sex hobby to everybody? My argument would be it does change. And I think that that's why you see a lot of single sex spaces popping up, right? Because there are now, like, I've seen at least a few, like, men's only groups online. Um, and I'm going to ask you, um, do you think that men's only groups are acceptable or a good thing? And I have my answer to this, and I think most
Yeah.
people know my answer to this, but
I
mhm.
think that it is both acceptable, and in some cases, I don't want to say should be encouraged, but shouldn't be frowned upon when it does happen. And here's why. And this is kind of like my non-scientifically backed opinion about these sort of things. But I think that guys have a way of sorting themselves out in a way that if women are present, they can't do. And I feel like guys have a way of pouring into each other that only happens when it's just guys present. And I think that when you, not to sound like a 1950s grandma, but I think that when women enter a space that is predominantly occupied by guys, it changes the dynamic. Guys, at least in some capacities, soften their language. They don't necessarily say what they want to. I read a book once where men would rather lose an arm out of a bus than see a woman cry in some capacities. So I think that and speaking as a woman, if I was told that I wasn't welcome in a group because they just wanted guys, is it going to feel like a little bit like at the kindergarten where it's just like, okay, well, this team doesn't want me, so that's fine. Yeah, but I'm also not a kindergartner. And I have other things to do on my Saturday night. There are plenty of other groups to be a part of. And frankly, I wouldn't want to be a part of a group where my presence is allowed but resented. And if I'm there to have fun, like that's not how I want to start the interaction. Which is why I think it's great, actually, that right now I feel like there's been sort of a genre boom in terms of things like more, I'm not sure how quite to describe it, where there's been like an OSR boom that focuses more on like hardcore kind of dungeon delving. I think Shadow Dark is kind of a huge symptom. The Shadow Dark's popularity is a huge symptom of that. I think that Castles and Crusades having a bit of a renaissance right now is due to wanting to have like a more stripped back that doesn't entirely lose all of the Dungeons and Dragons more modern appeal, but loses a lot of stuff. I think that if you look at like I've seen a lot more discussions about like the game Chainmail than I have in a while. I think that Warhammer's booming, even though it's not really I mean, it's kind of borderline. And some people might consider it part of the TTRPG realm, but I think the fact that we're seeing a boom in terms of these more harder, I don't want to say hardcore because that sounds a little pretentious, but like more math focused meat grinder kind of systems. I'm not sure if I would say like Dungeon Crawl Classics is also having a renaissance, but I know that that content tends to be pretty popular online as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's funny that you say that because I actually wouldn't even classify Shadow Dark as a number crunchy game. It's a little bit meat grindery. I'll give you that one. I wouldn't I wouldn't classify it as
that is
number
I would
crunchy.
say that's I would like
Yeah.
it comparatively to something like you're right, I misspoke.
No, you're good.
It's I would say it's a more deadly game.
Mm-hmm.
And more consequence oriented than say fifth edition is.
Yes.
And
Yes, I would.
Pathfinder to some extent,
I would
or
say
even
so.
Pathfinder 1E, and it was pretty deadly. Like my husband has died so many times, but at some point, when it's just like, okay, we can resurrect people. Once the resurrection hits, it's like, death becomes a
3d6 down
little
the
less.
line.
Yeah, that becomes a little bit less of an impediment. So it's I would say that this kind of renaissance of the more meat grinder, death at every corner. I think Dungeon Delver. Hi, Bell. By the way, if you're watching, I think Dungeon Delver's leading a one-man crusade to get a AD&D first edition back into the mainstream
Yeah,
sort of.
I wouldn't even say it's a one man crusade. I think a lot of people are trying to do that actually,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good thing. And I'm somebody I don't even like play AD&D.
Mm.
I've read the materials and I've played like a session or two of it, but I don't like uh, but I'm not an AD&D person. I don't run AD&D. And I think that's a good thing because I think more variety in the market
Yeah.
splits up the audience a little bit more so that people can find like what they're interested in. And it's actually it's funny that you say that you're like so it's actually funny that you're citing Shadow Dark as like a as a meat grindy one that kind of takes off some of the audience who want that sort of thing because Shadow Dark, as we both know, was created by Kelsey, a
Yeah.
woman, and like and the thing is, there are and have been since the beginning of time many female creators for RPGs that have like gone mainstream and have been very very successful. I mean, there's Margaret Weiss, there's
Mhm.
Gwendolyn Kestrel, Laura Hickman, and Kelsey Dione, and there are many others. Those are just the ones that come to the top of my head right now. So I mean, there is this element of they've always been here, but it's
Yeah.
been kind of an ever expanding thing. And real quick, another super chat. Um, you sometimes okay. First of all, thank you, Demented Villain, for the $5. You sometimes hear horror stories of DMs or players inserting their magical realm into the game. Are women better with that, worse, or about equal? Um,
So I'm
I
assuming
don't.
going by the question, like
This.
they're sort of OCs or
Mhm.
there's a couple adventures. I was gonna reference them too. It's a two-man crusade. um by Magical Realm. I okay. I think it's just a personality trait to want to like assert kind of like OCs and things like that. I remember being in one, it was like 5e, but it was essentially rip off Star Wars in college, where the GM had like full cutscenes with himself. Where it's like
Ooh.
it felt
Oh, that's weird.
like where we like his character was talking to another NPC, and it's just like, so when do uh when do we get to be
You realize you have
interacting with
players.
people? Yeah, and nothing against him. He's an all right guy, but
Mhm.
I think that that's less of a gendered thing and more of a newbie DM kind of thing. Where I
I
think,
think so. Yeah.
yeah, um, I think that um, again, going back to the rather lose bus out of arm out of a bus kind of thing, I think that there may, and I haven't seen this correlation yet. I think there may be less of a tendency to want to criticize, like, especially if you're like you don't want to hurt her feelings, like criticize the style of a female GM or how they do it, which may lead to more of an issue. But
Mhm.
I also do think that people in general, especially in like most gamers in general, are kind of awkward people who don't know how to articulate themselves in terms of confrontation. But I feel like in general, it's sometimes difficult to speak in truth, but also kindness uh, to another person, saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
we would prefer the game to be this way, or could you try it like this, or look, dude, we're not having fun because of this aspect of the game." And it's hard to say and it's hard to hear, but especially if you want to become a DM that keeps their players, it's something that everyone, men, women, need to kind of figure
Yeah.
out when they start running games.
I think so. I think a lot of there is a lot of an element of being able to speak truthfully to your DM and telling them what is and isn't working, male or female. Really, I find I find that actually very difficult. Um, but I mean, it's part of running games is being able to discuss things with your players and see what works and what doesn't. And speaking of what works and what doesn't, Oh man, I have so much to respond to because I want to go back to what you said about the single sex spaces, man, because I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
I like, and I think some people probably know. I had this this kind of weird dance with the bro SR where they were like,
Mm.
"Are we gonna have to gatekeep harmony? What are we gonna do?" Right? And what it comes down to is there is a social dynamic that exists between groups of guys. So I'm gonna say something kind of controversial here. I think that the three best types of gender ratios for games are a group of entirely men, a group of entirely women, or about a 50-50 split. Because I have observed when I was teaching, I would observe a lot in classrooms that had very skewed gender ratios that would bring out the worst type of behaviors in both sexes, right? Um, Boys and girls. And this is actually mostly a thing that applies to younger people. I think more mature people, people who are married, have kids, have fewer problems with this, and in general are able to do like mixed sex groups very well, even if it's skewed, and not have any problems. I think a lot of people are able to do that, but especially when you're talking about younger people, um, it's it's kind of a it's harder because you have like hormones and like you know people are dating each other and stuff like that, and so you don't know who's going to break up in the middle of a game and leave your game. I'm still mad about that. But so you end up with like some very poor behaviors from both sexes in groups with very skewed gender ratios, especially in like in younger groups. Like, and when I say young, I'm talking about the ages of like around 15 to 25.
Mm.
That group, that in particular, it gets a little bit weird sometimes. But I mean, when the bro SR, when I had like my little dance, which I've, you know, I know what I did apparently. But when I had a that little dance with them, it was like I wouldn't want to be the only girl in a group of like 20 dudes. I don't want that. That's a little bit weird to me. And I have my own group and I'm happy with my own group. My group is a mixed sex group and we do very well, you know?
Mm.
And I like don't even have time for another group. But also like it is there is an element of respecting single sex spaces because I do think that you are absolutely right on that groups of guys behave differently when there is a girl around. Some people are asking in chat what the Bro SR is. It is a Christian men's D&D group. I briefly, I wouldn't say briefly. I've had a lot of interaction with them because I liked what they brought to gaming, and they had a very unique way of approaching old styles of games. Speaking of, I have a super chat I haven't gotten to. Like AD&D 1E, who a couple of adventurers says is the best game that will ever be made.
Yeah. I
And he's
was
giving his
just
account back to his wife.
yeah, I was just
Mhm.
on live with him Wednesday and we did the
Oh
Wheel of
yeah.
Doom on Jack's channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. Um, but
What is the Wheel of Doom? I don't know what that is.
it's so on Jack's channel, he does a thing where it's like he asks a does a lot of ask gets a lot of questions from people on Discord and X and things like that are kind of all in time with gaming and things like that. And then it's like a rapid fire question where everybody has to answer. Um, and it started off with uh, uh, Dungeon Delver being able to talk about Crom, which is the new program that he's created, and I'm really excited for him. But it also ended with everyone asking with the question, "Why does Bill like AD&D so much?" So that was we all got to answer that question, and then Bill got to basically. I don't want to call it a manifesto, but he was able to do like
I've
his read.
I've heard a Bill manifesto before. I
Yeah.
understand.
Uh,
Um, and not to cut you off, I apologize,
oh
but
god.
I yeah, real
Um,
quick. Oh, go ahead.
No. Just go ahead
All
and do
right, all
that.
right. We have Evil Minion. Thank you so much for the $5. He says, you also get a weird dynamic when it's a bunch of singles and one couple at the table, and when the couple is a DM and a player.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we were literally chatting about this before stream.
Yeah.
The I've talked about how I met my husband a number of times, but we were literally met at the D&D table. And at the comic book shop I was a part of, there were a couple groups running on Thursdays, and the group that I was in on Thursdays ended up dissolving suddenly. So I turn around one day and I'm tapped on the shoulder by by the DM for my husband. My then we were sort of seeing each other at the time. I don't think we'd started dating yet. Um, I was tapped on the shoulder by his DM, said, "Hey, do you want to join the group?" So apparently, my husband had asked him to invite me to their group now that the game I was in, dissolved. Um, but when we started gaming, I got a message from on Discord from DM one day and said, "Hey, listen, um, I know you guys are kind of seeing each other. One of the ground rules I want to put down, though, is that I don't really want any like in character romance going on. Like, I don't want that to be at the table." And as there's a part of me, like again, the kindergartner in me was like, "Oh," but the adult me was like, "Yeah, that's really reasonable," because I don't really know the DM that well. I don't know anybody else at the table that well, and I have just started dating this guy, so it's the last thing that I think a couple should do at a table is make the other players uncomfortable. And so we've even though we're married now and going to have a kid, we've stuck to that rule because we have everybody from we have my brother-in-law, and we have a 17-year-old, and we have like a guy who's been happily married for a couple of years, for like by a couple I mean like 15, 20, just a couple. But I think it is there should be a kind of boundary put there, because I just don't think it's appropriate for a DM to be, even if he is married to this person, I don't think it's appropriate to make the other players feel like they're uh, watching a soft core scene at the
Right.
table.
I think a lot of groups and individuals have like stories of like horrible DMing
Yeah.
experiences that stem from couples and things like that. And like, uh, oh gosh, briefly in my group, they call it the strawberry milk incident in my group because there were like two guys at one point a long time ago. This was several years ago. They were both guys who got into fairly explicit erotic role play, and somebody at the table just kind of was like, "I'm going to go to Target and buy strawberry milk. Who wants to come?" And everybody's like, "Yep." And so we
Yeah.
like everybody left to get strawberry milk,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the story that my group has about that. Thankfully, we've had no other incidents. I was not running at the time, I should say. Um, this was not mine. But anyway, so kind of to segue into running games. This is kind of a loaded question, but
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna throw it to you anyway, and we're gonna discuss it. Um, should you run games differently for women in the group? If your group is majority women, or if you just have like one woman, should you alter your running style, your game running style, from a group where you have all men?
So I am going to approach this question from my own perspective, and that has been since I've been in college, I have always been in groups where you either are at a college club or at a comic book shop or something like that. And a lot of those experiences are either you don't really know the people that you're sitting down with, or you're sitting down to run for, or you don't necessarily know who's going to show up at your table. Um, I am kind of always of the opinion that uh, the best way to avoid issues at a table is to set expectations and boundaries at the very beginning. You don't have to necessarily pull out like the 10 commandments if it's a one shot. But I think having an expectation of behavior just in general, especially if you're in a public setting or you don't know these people that well, like I think you can get loose and goofy, so to speak, if you're at a home game and you've known these people for years and that kind of thing. Um, but I think that the best course of action isn't necessarily to run for women, but to run for strangers, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah.
keep,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, it's fine. I would say, especially if it's a public space, keep to PG 13 language. Don't really do anything like super graphic at the table. Keep it fairly like clean cut because again, you don't know who's listening around you. You don't know who's going to be at your table. Um, and I just think that's the best way to go about it. And I think that the more you get to know the people at your table, maybe they're reoccurring, maybe you invite them for a home game, that kind of thing. Um, I think at that point you can start saying, okay, so this person likes this kind of gameplay more, this kind of gameplay before. You can kind of start to uh, know your players ahead of time and know their like I don't want to say their needs, but like if you have a power gamer and a heavy RPer at the same table, just like okay, we want to have great combat, but we also want to keep both players engaged. How do we do that? But I will say, as somebody who has DM'd for people who I've not met before, because I was DMing at the comic book shop and it's an open table. Um, it's the best thing that you can possibly do is say, okay, I don't know these people very well. Let's keep to like standard kind of stuff. Let's not like for example, not to bring in an entirely different system, I would not want to run Vampire the Masquerade for people I'd never met before
Yeah.
or hadn't known for a significant amount of time.
I 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Um,
that kind of thing. Like keep to systems that are fairly mainstream. Keep to subjects that are fairly mainstream. Um, and like until you know the people better, like
and
just yeah, that kind of thing.
I think this is actually an interesting question because I have people in the chat and people in the chat whose like opinion I normally agree with and am normally like on board with, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. I have people in the chat who are like saying completely opposite things about this subject, which is interesting to me because this is something where I don't think everybody agrees. And I
Yeah.
like these topics because it means there's something to delve into. So there is one side of the coin, and we saw these comments a lot on Twitter. There were several commenters that said, no, I run for a group of women and I run just like I normally do, no difference. And then we have people like Scudder for Mike's wife, who thinks that you should change your style for women. And we have other people in the chat too who say, women are saying that they don't want anything to change for them, but they don't appreciate the more macho style game. So I so it's going to be something that varies on individuals, really, is what it comes down to. And I do think that women have like a different way of interacting with the world sometimes because I think men are a lot of times focused on the goal, like, okay, how can I amass an army? How can I advance myself? Where a lot of times women that I've observed, obviously this isn't universal. Nothing I say here is
Mm-hmm.
universal, but sometimes a lot of times women that I've observed are more interested in kind of exploring the world and saying, okay, what is here? What is this NPC doing? What's his name? Which is always a panic moment for me. Like Frank. Yeah, no.
The
So
dragon
and
named Frank.
ooh, no, no. I at least name my dragons, but women will be more interested in figuring out like how daily life is going, and if they see something cute, whether it be a unicorn, a rabbit, I don't know, a flump, a lot of times it's like the girl in the group that is like, guys, can we
If
keep
not
them?
friend, why
So yeah,
friendship?
right, exactly.
I
So I
mean,
mean, there's certainly a difference, at least in the approach that men and women take to the game, for sure.
yeah.
Um, as far as whether or not one should change their running style to accommodate for it, this is just like I almost want to say a useless question to ask, actually,
Mm,
um, because I think that people are just different, and you have to look at the individual table's needs. And sometimes the answer is yes, and some no. Um,
mm,
I I don't change things for the girls in my game, and actually, I will go one step further. I will give the floor back to you in 1 minute. I will go one step further and say I when I did my big 4X game, which was a competitive war game. Um, I there was a situation where we had there was only, unfortunately, we had two female players, but one of them dropped out, leaving me with one, and it made me really sad. So it was me and like one other girl. But there was this girl. She played the phoenixes, and she's a great friend of mine. She's a wonderful sport about it. She did a great job. But she played like the phoenixes in this game, and we had a guy who was like kind of coming in, and he's like, I feel really bad because I'm about to demolish her. I'm about to take her land. I'm about to like completely destroy every phoenix in this world. And I feel really bad about it. And I told him, like, treat her the same as you would any other
mm.
player. Don't feel bad about it. You are playing your role. She understands. And guess what?
Yeah.
She understood.
Yeah,
She
and I feel
Yeah.
like it would be almost disrespectful to her at that
Yep.
point to take it easy
I
on
did
her.
too. I did
Yeah.
too. She doesn't want to be taken easy on. She
Yeah.
might be watching right now. I don't know. But I mean, she doesn't want to be treated with kid gloves. I don't want people to
Yeah.
treat her with kid gloves. I want people to treat her as a person in the game. I refused to adjust and to tell people, be nice to this player because she's a girl, right? That would
Yeah.
be insulting, I think. I would never want somebody to do that for me. Um,
Mm.
Anyway, that's less of an RPG story because that part wasn't really much of an RPG. It was more of a 4X game.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, I may have missed a super chat
Go
or
ahead.
three. I'm
Well,
sorry.
go ahead. Let's catch
Okay,
up.
I like money. Um, thank you, Critical Dom, for the $5. He says, "Remember, D&D is a war game. RPGs came from role playing as a general or sub commander. The trash talk is also part of fun." 100% true. And RPG's wargaming roots, or D&D's wargaming roots, I think is a large part of why it appealed to men mainly at the beginning.
Mm.
I think that's 100% relevant here. And Michael McLaughlin says, "Thanks, guys. See, guys, chicks play D&D, and some of them are looking for husbands. You
Well,
know."
the funny thing. Okay, sorry. Go ahead and
No,
do the
no,
subject.
please,
Back.
no,
Okay. So
respond.
the funny thing about that. Okay,
We have
here's the
AJ.
Hello.
the man of the hour.
I'm sorry
He
I'm late. I don't.
exists.
Oh no.
Was there
It's okay.
if there was a nap involved, I forgive you.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay, look,
speed limit 50.
I took a nap before this because the baby wanted a nap, so there we went. But also, how are you today, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much. How are you?
Tired. Second trimester tired, but it's fine.
Right.
It's great to have you on, AJ. You're coming a bit late, but we're gonna go for a little bit still, as long as I still have people. So AJ, if you want to give a brief introduction, I know people were here last week that saw you, but I think there are more people watching now than last week. So because we
Right,
have
right.
Alyssa. So,
How much have I missed? What have I missed? What have we
uh,
covered so far?
so I don't know. Chat summarize the stream for him.
Uh, I think the big topics we hit were um, kind of how the women coming more into the hobby and like the commercialization of the hobby kind of went a little hand in hand. That's like a very like Spark Notes version. But like the summary kind of phrase would be like at Gen Con when uh, if mom is comfortable going, she'll bring the kids, and there's a better chance the husband will be able to go too. And there's a huge commercial aspect to families, and I think part of the hobby adjusting to suit women more is that they wanted to have women have typically have more or are willing to spend more on the hobbies and things like that. So sort of that, a little bit into like same-sex spaces and things like that, but nothing too crazy yet. I was about to answer a super chat that popped up actually.
Yeah, we'll go back to that. Was it this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the funny thing is, I previously, and this is part of my what you were saying, Harmony, about young people being kind of dumb at the table.
I said that?
Well, I mean, the gist of it was like people tend to be a lot more socially awkward and like less aware of dynamics when between like 15 and 25.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what you said, but I was given the short version of it.
Yeah.
I mean, my personality growth arc happened a lot between 20 and 25, and a lot of that was a lot of my D&D tables, I had somebody, or I was dating somebody at the table, which is like another reason why I think that it's cringy. Don't do it. Don't be the awkward couple at the D&D table, because I've done that once and never again. I speak from experience. But when I met my husband, I had decided when I got to that comic book shop, I was looking for friends. Gosh darn it. I didn't need a boyfriend. I was not interested. I would not be dating. This is a sacred place. This is a sacred place.
It always starts that way.
Yeah, and then of course he started talking about C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, and I was like, okay, well, I guess
rest is history.
That yeah.
And AJ,
you walked in there setting yourself up for forbidden fruit, and what did you find?
Yeah.
Like, don't touch. No. Mustn't. Yeah, no.
And then he looked at me and talked to me like I was a person instead of like.
But AJ, we're happy to have you here. Real quick, a brief introduction.
Oh, that's right. Who am I? Right. Yeah.
Who are you?
So I'm a YouTuber. They call us dungeon tubers, and I talk about D&D lore. There's like a lot of Forgotten Realms videos and deep dives on monster lore and things like that. And I'm currently in the process of finishing up publication on a new RPG, which I'm putting out soon.
Exciting. Nice. Now, why are you on the Woman Show?
Yeah. Why did you? So basically, my look at the defensive stance. My personal experiences with gaming. I just wanted to talk about that because I have a very interesting story with a group of all female gamers at the table and good friends of mine that would all gamed separately in different games, but this is the first time they're all gathered together. And the group dynamics were really interesting. Like it was very unspoken hierarchy that has been well established because they'd known each other for years and years and years. But it sort of translated into how they played their characters at the table as well, which was really interesting. Like the characters couldn't be out of step with the social hierarchy of the group. You get what I mean? Yeah. But there were no sort of distractions or anything like that, so they were hardcore into the character play pretty much straight away. And there was this one interesting incident where a pretty new player to D&D had a druid character, like a gnome druid, and there was a bar fight going on due to some personal insult. That's usually how the fights set off. It was either that or some threat to something they found that they had adopted into their sort of found family, like be it an animal companion or an NPC or just a concept of what something they wanted to be, to make real, to happen. Like, we're going to take over this guild hall. Anyway, so bar fight happens. The druid starts tending to a smashed oak barrel of some alcohol that had smashed on the ground. She's like, it's wood, it hurts. So she put her hands on it and started healing this thing and floods it with round after round after round after round during combat. It's like, what are you doing on your turn? I'm going to continue healing the barrel. So me being the creative DM that I am, it's like, well, if there's this much vital energy being pumped into this barrel, it's going to awaken and become some sort of a creature. So that became Barry. That was their companion magical mead producing barrel. It gave them a healing draft, so I didn't have to keep dispensing healing potions. And it was their favorite thing. I even made a craft a little miniature of Barry with his little twig tail, and stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately, I made the cardinal sin of Dungeon Masters, which was never ever kill off do the Disney thing and kill off the animal. But Barry was reproducing at the end of this because he was so full of life energy, and I wanted each of them to have like a little memento mini Barry. But Barry exploded in the process, and all the other little barrels came out, and apparently that was really bad, and I got vilified.
I I hope none of my players heard you say that killing a pet is a cardinal sin of DMing because they will replace me. Um,
Now I just want to
Right,
figure out
different strokes for
what you
different
were.
folks. I'm just yeah, that was
I
what happened.
what would you call, like, what would be the scientific name for the children of the little of Barry? Would it be like little Bartletts? What would you
I
call?
guess
they'd be mugs.
Yeah,
keglings. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'd be like little
yeah,
mugs,
mugs. Yep,
little
mugs,
mugs.
mugs,
kegs,
Yep.
little kegs,
kegs
six
to
packs.
gas.
Kegling. I like it. And that kind of gets into a good topic of discussion here. What does an all woman group look like? And are there different dynamics at play there than in all male groups? I think the answer is, well, I'm not going to answer. I'm going to let you guys answer it actually.
Well, from my experience, I didn't really change much of anything in the game, and their character choices and the way they built characters were pretty much on par with just regular play. Can't see any difference there. No, it was mostly what motivated the characters to act in the game that was different. So that was sort of narrative and plot choices were different. But I didn't actually make any concessions in the rules mechanics or anything like that. That was all the same.
Yeah. Um, I think essentially the same. Like, I don't think anything should mechanically change. It was kind of interesting when you mentioned like the hierarchy, because I think that um is something that would be the interesting caveat of an all female group is whatever dynamic they have before the game will be brought into the game. And that isn't necessarily untrue with guys, but I feel like guys are okay with switching things up around occasionally. Um, I feel like it's not as fluid with women, in a sense, and I feel like it would be. I don't know if this is gonna sound odd. I think like it'd be better to have one woman or two women in an all mostly male group than have one guy in a mostly female group, because the very strict hierarchy I think would maybe explode depending on the dynamics of what was going on.
Shit.
I don't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I've been in both.
yeah,
I've both been the only woman in a group. I've run groups for only
yeah,
guys, it, and I think that I didn't really observe the hierarchy difference, and that's something that's something that eludes me. Actually, I did not observe that. In my group of only guys, they've played together for several years, and they are interested in dungeon delving, killing things, divvying up loot, and causing. Well, that group has a problem with causing a lot of chaos wherever they go. Like they oh gosh, they no, I'm not going to tell a D&D story. I'm going to stop myself. But they will cause a lot of chaos, and they're just in it to make things interesting. They like drama of their own doing. But I also at the same time had not an entirely female group, but a mostly female group, and they would do kind of the opposite. I remember I ran Curse of Strahd with a group that was mostly women. There were there were one or two guys in the group depending on the day, and that was that took a while. I'm going to be honest. The campaign took longer than, and I've run Curse of Strahd several times. That campaign took longer than the other times I ran it because Oh my God, this sounds so bad. They needed a
Go
we had to
ahead.
have a beach session. We had to have a makeover session. I'm not even kidding. Like I was like, okay, this way you guys can RP braid each other's hair. That's fine. Like because I'm not gonna stop them if that's what they want to do.
That is
And
true.
yes, there was like there was a point where they were just like, we want to RP braid each other's hair, and I'm like, okay, okay, you can do that. And this was before I actually used the time rule that I do now. So I mean, they were able to like waste a little bit of time without a problem, whereas now I kind of use a much stricter time rule, and that's a little bit harder to do for multiple sessions on end. But we had like, oh gosh, there was a beach session, the makeover session, the session where everyone got to know the were ravens and they were
Now
like
I'm
talking
just
and stuff.
really
So it's like,
curious as to what a beach would look like.
in Barovia, there's an aboleth there.
Like would you
I was
go
like, all
and
right,
there's
there's enough.
like a dead whale floating
No,
up to the
aboleth.
surface?
100% that
Here's
lake.
the script I've just finished on the aboleth, the complete guide to the aboleth, which I'm going to be
Oh,
recording
yes.
soon.
They're,
So
they're like
once
one of my
again, you're
favorites,
on
too.
point with my content for some strange reason.
No way.
I think it'd be
Um,
funnier though if like in
One,
one random spot in Barovia there was just like a blessing from some ancient sun god. And so there's like one like patch of sunlight and you are on one side of it and it's like Barovia and like cold and then you step over the line and like Jamaican music starts playing.
and
all fenced
Oh
off with
yeah,
stratas,
there's like a
highly
tiki
dangerous
bar.
area. Yeah, like
so,
no
Uh
going past this point. He hits his deadly secret. Is there's this
yeah.
patch of true sunlight that can destroy him.
real quick, I'm going to open it up to you guys, I swear. I want to address two things. One, I had another super chat that I left out, and I want to. A couple of adventurers says, when we play together, we generally play couples. Our characters always end up like a sitcom beta couples. There isn't any actual romance at the table. I think there is a
Honestly,
mature way
yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like not even against players playing couples as long as it doesn't get gross. But also, there was a really good comment in chat that I want to pull.
Mm.
Um, that one that I agree with completely. I think it's like my favorite comment of the night, and I'm losing it. It was by Macho Mandoff. Oh gosh, I had it. Okay, Macho Mandoff says. I was hoping I'd find it. Oh, here we go. Any game becomes the compound of your personalities and those of your better participants, a superior alloy. Tailoring for women players is just a subset of this. Um,
Mm.
I think that uh, it isn't necessarily based on the sex of your players, but their personalities that change and mold the game.
Yeah.
And I think that that is completely right on my favorite comment tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to open up to you guys. How do you feel about that? That's like a really good point.
Well, I mean, actually, let's start with AJ because the chat's probably heard me talk enough tonight. So let's
I
get
was
you
just
in here,
gonna,
AJ.
I was just gonna fall back on my tried and true one, which is for any DMing advice, really. If your friendship is good at the table, then the rules don't matter.
Mm.
So you can role play and improv anything, and you're very loose with house rules and all that sort of stuff when you know each other very well and you're just riffing off each other's ideas. So yeah, systems and things are just themes to an ongoing game, no matter what you're playing. It's the group dynamic that is really the game of role playing games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just put a veneer of whatever game that you're pretending to play over top of it.
Yeah. And I genuinely think that there's a lot of truth in that where um it's why I when I we were talking earlier when I was saying that you shouldn't plan for running for women, you should plan on running for strangers. Because you don't know the people yet until you land like and sometimes it might take a couple sessions for someone's true like personality to start popping up, especially if they're nervous, especially if they're like, oh, they're new as well. Like, I at the table, I can be a little. I'm like this weird combination of I'm the notes taker, but I'm also a little bit of a gremlin at the table. So it's like this weird it's probably something diagnosable, but I'm never gonna get around to it. But we have me, and then we have my husband, who's like very like kind of straightforward, wants to get stuff done, and then we have a power gamer who's my brother-in-law, who like has all these combinations and yet is the guy who's died second most frequently out of everybody because he keeps running ahead into things. And then we also have like I don't want to say the token older guy because that sounds a little mean, but we have the guy who's been married for 15, 20 years. His kids are teenagers, and uh, so it's a good dynamic that we've all come into, because it's like, okay, I have these ideas. I don't know the system as well as uh, Eric, who's the older guy, and it's like, okay, this is what I think I can do with this spell. How would this actually implement? Like, I was trying to figure out how to use Ice Wall to block off the vision of this construct, because as a wizard, I can't use my spells against constructs, but what can I do on the battlefield to kind of aid everybody else while still not getting murderfied by this giant metal thing? Because I came close to death already once this month, and I don't want to do that again. Wizards only get one of those. But it's really all about the dynamic you set up, and I think that fortunately or unfortunately, however you view it, I think the hobby has expanded so much to the time where there's a lot of people who are new or very inexperienced with how things work, or have only known RPGs through, say, Critical Role or things like that, who've never actually done a full campaign or things like that, or have only done it online or that kind of thing. So I think having like a standard set of expectations that you as a DM set for yourself about like what's appropriate, what's not appropriate at the table, is probably the smartest way to go about it. Because once you get past all the formalities and the people at the table go from being strangers to becoming like friends, then you can start being a little bit more like you can adjust and things like that. But I think, to add one more little caveat, I think a player who expects a huge amount of catering to them when they have yet to become a part of the group isn't necessarily a player you want around for a long time. Because a player who is very self-interested and cannot allow for other styles of play is not somebody who's interested in a group dynamic. They're interested in playing a video game. And it may not be an ill intent thing, but it's also like, this isn't going to be a good fit if they want a constant catering to them above everybody else at the table. If that makes sense.
I think it's 100% about the group dynamic at that point. Yeah, because you do want, like Macho Mandoff said, and it was a Gary Gygax quote, you do want your campaign to morph into like a superior alloy that blends, and this isn't part of the quote, but that blends the weird parts of your personalities together, and you have like something unique and different and beautiful that no other group has. And that's kind of what I strive for in my game. And it's not really about gender. Like I said, we have a mixed sex group. My group leans mostly male now. I used to have more girls, but they left.
Hey, look, if you wait long enough, I'll have another female player ready for you in about, let's say, 8 years.
Good to know.
I'll start on one by one time. Oh.
Oh boy.
It's
No,
a devious plan, folks.
I still sound quiet. Apparently, I'm quiet. I will adjust. Somebody else talk.
Yeah.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you, AJ.
Glad I could help.
So, AJ, I do actually have a question. Was there something that kind of got you interested in this topic? Because Harmony did say this was kind of a question that sprang from you. So I'm wondering if this is just something that's been like near and dear to your heart the past couple weeks, or is there just something that like sprang this conversation, or?
Well, for the last couple of years, I've been designing an RPG.
Hmm.
It's been constantly on my mind. And the thing that really upset me with the reason why I did this in the first place was Wizards of the Coast basically dropping the ball with Dungeons and Dragons and their actions towards the community and their sort of closed-minded corporate greed. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to produce an RPG that was totally free and was as accessible as possible to everybody that wanted to play it. And so when I was designing the rules, I really just chopped away everything that was like legacy of wargaming back in the 1970s. So all of the, hit points and initiative and all
Hmm.
the attribute points and things like that, just got rid of all that. Because the subject matter of the RPG is superheroes playing you've encountered some strange radioactive sandwich and you lose your lungs and can breathe lightning or something, and there's all these random tables and stuff. So you can just make up a core character concept really, really quickly. And then everything in the game is just narrative. And then if the host of the game needs to make a random result, they just roll a dice and just that number is unmodified. And there's a little chart there that tells you what every single number means, which is kind of what Matt Colville's new game. Their core mechanic is kind of like that as well. They use 2d10s and you sort of get within a range of really bad, middle, okay, really good, but always the plot is progressing forwards. The dice never really stop anything in its tracks, which is really good. So yeah, accessibility. So something that
Yeah.
you can pick up when you're really busy, and women have very busy lives, um, like most guys do. But like when you're juggling the whole social event of an evening as well, and the last thing you want to do is sit down when you've finally got a breather and read 20 pages of rules just to play the game.
Yeah.
So
I've found that that's been the case with when I run, because I don't run often, but I usually run one shots. And I think my favorite thing to do with that is pick up like a random quick start chapbook that my dad may have picked up at a convention 10 years ago that's never been played, and just pull it out, read it real quick, and say, "Okay, guys, this this is a one shot. If this is terrible, it's a one shot. We'll never have to come back to this ever." And it's kind of a lot of memorable little fun nights. There was there was like a horror RPG that played out with that was really fun. There's this one called Beach Patrol where you basically play Baywatch characters, uh,
yeah.
which was a lot of fun.
I've never heard of that.
Well, it's called it's a variation on a rule set that was created by the company. I think they just did a lot of little spin-off versions of it. But I don't know if it'd be a fun full campaign, but they had like you could there was like a random generator in terms of the adventure, and they ended up having a KGB guy on this like island, and there were of course sharks with lasers attached to their heads, and like um it was a pretty grand old time. They even had rules for like the Baywatch After Dark, like kind of stuff where there's like vampires get involved and like that one
All
weird
right, so
season.
I want to
I
know
can
more
see it.
about this game.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's great but it's a I don't know what you were saying reminded me of that, where yeah, like when I was working full time and trying to write books at the same time, it's just like uh, trying to find the time to create something fully developed, especially when I would be going to a comic book shop, and there might be some trying to find a polite way to say this, uh, a, a gentleman or lady who would come in and decide what they were going to do that evening is just be incredibly disruptive at the table, because that's what they do to get their kicks and giggles. uh, it's difficult to want to put in a lot of time to plan like a full adventure when you there's a chance of you running it. That's also why it's just like plan for strangers. Uh, don't don't allow stupid behavior at the table, like that kind of thing. But
Um,
no, that's what it reminded me of.
so AJ, it sounds to me like your question is about making your game accessible for a female audience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I have thoughts on that. And I mean, I think everybody knows my thoughts aren't the only ones that matter, but I think they matter. So I would say don't just don't. Because I think it's important that you make the game that you want to make, and you make the game you're passionate about, and you make the game that you love, and you make it for the audience of people who are like you and your game group. And if your game group is more female oriented, sure. Um, but I think it's important that you make the game that you want to make and that you love and that you want to play, and worry about the group that you are playing with. And if women like that style of game, they will play. And if women don't like that style of game, they won't play. But I don't think it is the correct move to make major changes to your game, or that you may not make otherwise because you think it's going to draw in a broader audience. Because while broader audiences can be good, it also, you want it to be a core passion project, and you want to make it for a specific audience in mind. And that specific audience might be people who are like me and my gaming group. And I think if you do that, and if you put what you want to put in the game without worrying about who it's accessible to, I think people will like that more, and you will be more passionate about the project. That would be my advice.
Yeah.
That's good advice. It's a good thing I followed all of it.
Um,
Yeah. So yeah, while it's accessible, it's not aimed at being accessible specifically for women. It's accessible for everybody. So as I was talking to you, people who are in prison, for instance, incarcerated people don't have access to dice. So there's dice symbols on the side of the page, so you can just randomly roll the pages instead of dice. And there's an app support plan for it and things like that. So just all the modern kit things. But the most important thing is that the PDF is free. So I'm just doing a Kickstarter for the print version of the book. And anybody who wants to check it out, much like walking into a comic book store or a gaming store and picking up a book and leafing through it and deciding whether you're going to buy it, I think that's reasonable for a Kickstarter when you're trusting somebody with your money and the book hasn't been printed yet. So yeah, not specifically down any particular track. It's just like my litmus test was give the book to somebody who'd never played it before. Time how long it took them to make a character was 2 minutes and 25 seconds. So I thought
nice.
I thought that was
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I had
proof of concept, right? Yeah, playtest.
Yeah. I did that too. I had players create characters in my Forex system, and definitely learned how unclear it was when I'd written it. Um, Dude, they were like, "So how is this accounted for?" I'm like, "I didn't even think about that being a concept, man. I had to like go back and rewrite it, and it was rough." Um,
Yeah.
Playtesting's like, it's really rough stuff. It's actually very nerve-wracking to
Yeah,
do.
it's brutal. It's a brutal process. You got to go, oh, that beloved thing I put in there, which I thought everything is sort of hinged on it. You don't like it. You don't use it at all. Okay, let's get rid of it.
So the only, oh, go ahead.
No. It just reminded me of like beta reading for books, and it's just like, okay, it's like that first round, which is like you send it out, and okay, I have to not do anything for 2 weeks, and I gotta wait to see what if they hate it. And then you have to go through a couple rounds of it, and it's just like, okay, what did they actually like, what they didn't like, what didn't, if something didn't quite land with people, and then figuring out, and it's almost a back way of looking about it. If something didn't land with someone properly, how to go back in and either augment it so that the people who did like it will still like it, but create a way that it, for the people who don't like it as much, that it works better for them. Like finding like that balance. I remember with, not to bring in a writing story, with my newest book, the first part is like a prison, like a mini prison arc, kind of, sort of. And it's just like, it was a gamble because it's like, okay, a lot of the story starts here and a lot of the characters are set up here, but not everyone will like this setup. So figuring out how to go back and like adjust it so that maybe it's cut up a little bit more with scenes from outside the prison, or like development of more characters and things like that. I don't know, it just reminded me of how you guys talking about the games, where it's just like um, there's a whole other level of dynamics to it, because you have to make sure all this makes sense, and also you have to create mechanics that work on top of that. So it's I don't envy you guys playtesting, getting that stuff figured out.
It's hard to be concise.
Yeah.
It really is. Real quick, I want to get to a super chat that I've kind of let sit here for a little while until the opportune moment. Are there any unique interpersonal conflicts that you have encountered in an all-female group that aren't in any other groups? Thank you, Demented Villain, for the $5.
That's classified. Can't talk about other people's interpersonal relationships without
Um,
their consent.
I think there's a definite change in the vibe. So, gosh, this one's actually hard to talk about because it's oof. Yeah, this one's really hard to talk about, but I'll just say that um, guys have a different way of approaching conflict than women do in general. Um, I'm going to say in general a lot tonight. I've been saying in general a lot because we all know there are exceptions. Whereas guys, if they have a problem with something that another dude is doing at the table, a lot of times they'll just say, "Hey, dude, stop," and he'll be like, "Oh, yeah, my bad," and it's good, right? Or sometimes they'll get like meaner about it. They'll be like, "Dude, you're taking up all the space. Step back, chill." You're like, yeah, yeah, okay, my bad, right? And you have that sort of dynamic. Women don't correct each other in the same way in general. Like, women will, like, a lot of times they won't bring up when something bothers them. Like, if they find somebody is doing something annoying or somebody is, making a major faux pas in the game, they're not going to say, hey, stop that most of the time. A lot of the time, women will just kind of hang on to it for a bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll go to the DM. I encourage my players. I say, hey, I would like to run a table where you guys are adults and talk to each other. If somebody like says, hey, don't do this, try to handle the issue privately with that player and with maturity if you can. I would prefer you go to the other player and talk it out like adults than go to me. But if you must go to me, then fine. I hate that role. I am not like I'm not your teacher. But that is a dynamic you get, and so you do have different interpersonal conflicts and different ways of handling things, I think.
Yeah. My most of my experience with all female environments have been more work environments, which is a very different dynamic. Um, but you can have an amazing time with like people, like in an all female group. It can be amazing, it can be a lot of fun, it can be very uplifting. But all it takes is a couple, like, I don't want to say rotten apples, and it can really spoil the experience, I think, and that kind of thing, and because women tend to be more uh, conflict averse sometimes when it comes to talking about issues in interpersonal kind of things. If there is someone who's being an issue at the table, it may not get addressed for a while, and that behavior might start uh, sort of bleeding out to other people at the table, um, which
And
is which is not. This is based on work experience and not necessarily gaming. Um,
it's
but
it
I've
applies.
found, yeah, but I found is that what you need in these kind of situations, um, is it. I think it helps if there's an age range in female groups. Um, I think that if it's all women about the same age and all the same life experience, you can get into like that kind of echoey chamber kind of thing. If you have maybe a couple older women who's maybe a little bit more life experience, a little bit more level headed, that can help ease out some of the tension in the group, especially if they're very active and mature and level headed and things like that. But I think that um, it's part of the reason I do prefer mixed gender groups is because I tend to be I can be pretty blunt personally. So the last thing I'd want is for to say like, oh, stop that. Like, or like say if I said like an idea is dumb, I wouldn't want it to lead to like a fight 2 months later that randomly pops up. I'd rather it be hashed out at the table in that moment and gone over, if that makes sense.
And a nerd's nerd in chat here. She says this pretty well. Which, by the way, if I had thought about it, I might have invited you, nerd's nerd, to this too. You also have a very good perspective on this, I think. She says, at their best, men can very quickly and directly address and resolve issues with no hard feelings. But at the worst, when the other dude doesn't immediately submit to the request, it can get ugly.
Mm.
So yeah, women are kind of we handle conflict differently. And I think at a certain point, when somebody's being a problem at the table, if it goes unaddressed, and I tell players this, by the way, I have always told my players, if someone, including me, is doing something that you really, really hate, like talk to us, like don't hold on to it because it won't get better. Nothing will change if you don't speak up. And I'm pretty adamant about saying that to all of my players, and I try to encourage people to be very vocal about their issues for that reason. And oh, okay, Alyssa, real quick, Patty's Parlor. Thank you so much for the $2. What system would you play your books in?
Um, I would say probably Old School Traveler. I think that the um, thanks. Uh,
I like Old School Traveler. I have fun with that one.
yeah, Traveler is kind of one of those systems where I think okay. I mean, it kind of depends on the book. For my sci-fi, I do Traveler because it tends to be like a lower tech kind of feeling. It's a galaxy post Civil War, so there's a lot of military esque elements to the setting. There's a lot of gang stuff involved, especially in the second book. Um, and there's not a lot of like high sci-fi kind of thing, so I feel like it would suit it better. There's also a lot of people die. Not to give any spoilers, but a lot of uh, especially in this newer book, there's a lot of heads rolling by the last act. So death being something that could be very certain. In fact, it could happen during character creation, and kind of the more sober, down to earth sort of feeling of Traveler would work very well for sci-fi. Um, I would say for my fantasy, um, that one's tricky. I there's a part of me that'd be tempted to do something, and I haven't played it, so I might be completely off base. There's a system called Pendragon that is very like Arthurian based, and it's basically you come up as Legends of Arthur. And in my two fantasy books, it's mostly I call it almost a pseudo historical low fantasy because it's the magic is so low level that it's almost like a Grimm's tale where magic is rare and it happens every so often, like but in specific manners and specific times, and in very odd ways. Um, so it's I would say something like Pendragon or Seventh Sea would bring in the historical element, but it's a little bit too. At least the version I played is a little bit too like cinematic, because again, death is a. So I would say Traveler and Pendragon or something of that ilk.
I think you
Uh,
gained a lot of fans with that answer. That was a good answer.
Thanks. Well, I played Traveler at
Mhm.
one point a long time ago, and it was I remember it fondly. I haven't played in a while, but um, it's been kind of this running joke with my dad and me about like dying during character creations. So um,
I've done that.
yeah, but yeah, I think that would be
Um,
the two systems I would go to.
so I want to actually throw that the same question we were talking about a little bit earlier at AJ. Um, have you have you observed in your time DMing for only women a difference in interpersonal conflict resolution um, relative to a group of guys?
Um, I don't know if it was specifically that group and their dynamic. So the as I mentioned, the interpersonal relationships sort of carried over into their characters, regardless of what their characters' backgrounds were. And so that was the main difference, in that they were very personal. Like they would use the character as a lens and strip down the character, like verbally abusive of the character's traits, appearance, etc., as a proxy to tearing down their best friend. So that was the game. Is kind of like, yeah, it was like the entire game was like a roast of all the different characters. Um, so yeah, that was a definite difference. I really enjoyed it, obviously. So yeah, but it was intimidating as a
I
guy being, yeah, because I didn't have any NPCs that were half as interesting that could
oh
participate. So
I
some point
imagine
out of the game.
that I oof. Did you use a woman NPC voice for a group of girls and did they laugh?
No, no, I did
Okay.
have a drunken. I had a drunken folk hero character that they quite enjoyed, so I brought him back in there as an NPC.
Mm.
Actually, that worked out quite well. Every time I brought in an old character from another game, the nostalgia factor got their foot in the door, so that was good.
Mm.
Dude, they're saying in chat I like Harmony and I like Alyssa, but I can't remember which one of them made Shadow Dark. That was
Neither
killing
of
me. I'm
us.
sorry.
Mm.
Kelsey Dion.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna get to the other super chats here and see if this leads to any extra questions. Butt Quack, thank you so much for the $20. It's a massive super chat, man.
That's
Thank you
also a
so
great
much.
name, by the way.
Yeah.
I, ooh, my cousin used to call me Butt Quackula when, or wait, no, it was Butt Crackula. Never mind. I'm sorry. We were kids. Okay, he says, my biggest challenge, and maybe this isn't even a problem, is that men and women have different inner lives. I think both can be equally good players. I'm just saying, as a man, I don't understand women as well as I do men. And he did clarify in another message after that, he's not trying to say that either are better players, but that he just doesn't understand women as well. And both can be good players. So I would agree with that. I it can be hard DMing for like a wide variety of different people.
Mm.
But what it comes down to, I think, is lean into the things that the players are interested in. Like if you planned out an adventure for them at a castle and on their way to the castle, they find like, I don't know, a sheep and they're like, "Oh my God, we love the sheep. The sheep is amazing." Like, lean into developing what that sheep is. Why is it there? Does it belong to a shepherd? Is it lost? Because that might become the adventure. And if you're DMing with people who are not like interested in the adventure you laid out, then I mean, lean into the sheep.
Yeah.
Um, just do it. It's fine. They'll have fun. Um, I don't know. That's my answer to that, but I don't know if that directly answered his sentiment. But
I'm not saying it's okay that you don't understand women, but I mean, I don't think poets and philosophers and sculptors and actors and singers have all come to the conclusion that they don't understand women either. So you're in okay company. Just listen to some Johnny Cash occasionally, and I don't know, you'll be okay. Like there, I don't think there's anything wrong with a guy not understanding women, because speaking as one very much affected by hormones right now, I don't understand me either. And that's right now. Uh, and that's okay.
I'll
I,
take it back to physics, man. Like light is either a particle or a wave until it goes through like a door. So if you've got a player that you just don't know what's going on in their head, it's okay to put them in a situation where they can tell you. So give them a situation like you do a skill check, and instead of rolling the dice that we're doing with the pass fail, say, tell me something about when your character learned this skill in their backstory. Like what was the NPC that they were training under? So they give you because you're asking them to talk about themselves, so that they automatically want to open up and talk about their
AJ,
character. Obviously.
can you move your mic a
Sorry.
little bit closer? Yeah, thank you.
So they obviously want to talk about their character, so you just relate it back to their character and tell me a story about your character in order to pass this test. And that generally works. So yeah, just in a nutshell, if you don't know what's going on in their head, ask them or put them in a situation where they can express themselves, and they will tell you what's going on in their head themselves, one way or another.
And I, I, I think you're entirely correct, actually. Um, I hate that I keep interrupting us with super chats. I mean, I
No, it's
like it. I
fine.
like it. Keep sending them. But like at the same time,
Yeah, well,
I do want to catch up on them. We have Butt Quack again. Thank you so much, Butt Quack. I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror if I didn't say that all women should try Within the Ring of Fire. I am like actually afraid. I don't know if this is a real suggestion. I don't know what this is, because this could be a
Oh,
real
it's
suggestion, or it could be like a
it's a
fatal
no, it's a role
situation.
playing
Oh, it
game
is? Okay.
by Andrew Wood. Yeah.
I don't know
So
it.
he was I think the first ever like streamed game via Google Hangouts or something. So he was one of the
Okay.
prototype. He was the prototype Matt Mercer, you could say. He was the first
I
the moon landing of D and D.
I somehow completely missed this.
yeah.
I know he
Oof.
should be a historical figure, but
Right?
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he wrote an RPG within the Ring of Fire, and yeah, they're very detailed character like groups and factions and things like that in the game, which are very lend themselves to very deep narrative role play.
Mm.
Yeah, it's almost too deep for me, but it is a good read, if anything, because he's really poured his heart and soul into the world setting, very mystical and brutal, and yeah, builds good tragic sort of hero characters.
I, I'll have to check that out.
Mm.
Really, thank you for the suggestion, Buttquack. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I think we're kind of running out of conversation topics. I think this has been a really productive
Yeah.
discussion, and I'm glad you guys came on. And I'm game to go for like a while longer. I'm like really into this more than I thought I'd be. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God, how do I talk about women? That's hard,
Yeah.
right? Like
I
even
mean, that's why I was like, it's okay. You don't have to understand
yeah.
women. Um,
Yeah, you don't. I don't understand the people I run for either. I think like some of them are complete gremlins. I don't
yeah,
get
I
it.
mean, I mean,
Um,
like the third or fourth time that one player just runs into the unknown area and after dying multiple times, it's just like, we're not coming after you. If you go in there, you're going to die, and he does it anyways. I
um,
do not understand.
and
Oh
we do have a
yeah,
question in chat. This has been posted a few times, and I think it's
Yeah.
a good time to address it. Um, what do we think about the Critical Role women cast members encouraging women to play RPGs?
good.
I
I'm not sure if this is a question asking if they were the reason a lot of people joined, or if we think it's a good thing or a bad thing. Um,
I think just general thoughts on it.
I mean, it's kind of like a celebrity culture thing in general. I think that we tend to want to emulate people that we admire and pick up hobbies of people that we admire. Um, so if people saw these voice actors on Critical Role and like, oh, I'd like to try that, um, I think that's just a very natural inclination. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if more women try to get into RPG design after Shatterark released, because I believe, and I may be incorrect, so someone in the chat can probably correct me if I'm wrong. Um, I believe she's probably the first female, like, I don't know if she wrote it by herself, but I think
Yeah,
she's the first
Kelsey.
Yep.
solo written female RPG writer in a while.
I
Certainly the
okay,
most notable
not
one.
ever,
Yeah,
but she's quite
Yeah.
notable.
yeah.
She's been on this show before. I didn't reach out to her for this. I should have. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I reach out to Kelsey? Oh, um,
Because I would be too scared to appear next to her.
oh, oh, she's
Well,
wonderful though.
yeah.
But yeah, no, she's completely self-published. Her wife helped her a little bit in the advertising department. Her wife is, I believe, in marketing, and they kind of worked on that together. I
You
believe is
know,
what she
back
said.
to an earlier question of who you'd have in a basement, I would have a marketing person.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. If okay, sorry, AJ, this is completely out of context, but that when we weren't sure if you were going to come or not, we thought, is AJ in Harmony's basement? And Harmony said she couldn't. She said no, and I asked her like, who would you put in your basement if you could, and she wouldn't answer me. So, but
I said
It's
that
already
you
full.
not being on time was proof that you were not locked in my basement. Because if you were
Right.
locked in my basement, you would be on time. So that's all.
but I would like if I had a moment of madness like Inspector Dreyfus classic Pink Panther movies, I would kidnap a marketer.
That
I
is
would put them in my basement so fast.
I would have a video
NSA.
editor down there so fast.
NSA, I
Please
swear
insane.
she's joking. Do not use that as evidence in court. Um,
I said
um,
if, Your Honor.
right.
If I'm mentally broke.
So but back to Critical Role here. I actually have very mixed feelings about Critical Role's impact on the hobby. I think that reducing it to Critical Role has been detrimental to the hobby, or Critical Role has been a boon to the hobby. I think reducing it to those extremes is not telling the whole truth, because I think there's been some good and some bad coming from it. It has brought more people in the game. It has brought more women in the game. It has also led to a large push towards corporatization. And it wasn't the only factor there, but it was one of several factors that compiled into a big push towards corporatizing and merchandising that was D&D has always had some merchandise associated with it, but after Critical Role, there was like a big boom in that, which you can probably say that that's bad, and brought a lot of a culture that maybe a lot of people don't want, because they want D&D to be something that they play with their friends, and I mean it still can be, but there's like
Yeah.
this big kind of corporate thing push to it now, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird. And it's led to more. So I think the best thing about Critical Role, the best impact it's had on the hobby, has been it has led to more people wanting to try to run their own games. I think the worst thing it has done for the hobby is I think it has led to people to expect games to be like improvisational theater, which many of them aren't. I have mine kind of switches between. In my games, sometimes we use some improv and voice acting and stuff, and then sometimes we're like, okay, so you have this many resources, and this guy is going to attack you in 3 months. You have 3 months to act. What do you do? So I'm fairly lukewarm on Critical Role, because I think that there has been like good and bad effects towards the hobby. I do think it introduced more women to it, sure. But there's a lot more that goes with that. It's a very complicated answer, I guess, would be my take.
I think um, Critical Role was a late stage symptom of a problem that was already present in the TTRPG space. And I think that was WotC's, because I think the OGL issue popped up uh, early on in the Critical Role stuff, but um, I think it kind of was a symptom that they were already heading in a corporatized kind of manner since 5e was uh their most popular book. um but it was also, in the creation of it, it does appeal a lot to the video game crowd, which is something I've heard other people quote. It's not my original thought. So I think Wizards of the Coast was already trying to make Dungeons and Dragons and its other kind of TTRPG properties more corporatized in a sense. Um, and I think it was just kind of one of the things that pushed it over the edge. So I think a lot of the problems that people have with Critical Role come more from the WotC effect than anything else. Which is why I think one of the best things that came out of Critical Role is the fact that there are more and more uh, independent, like people are leaving and going out from Dungeons and Dragons and exploring more independent, smaller press systems than we have in a very long time.
It is
Um,
becoming vastly decentralized, yeah.
yeah, which
Um,
there are some like sadness points to that, because there's, I don't think Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think there's ever going to be a system as cohesive and collective consciousness as Dungeons and Dragons, and I feel like that's just something that's been a cultural change for a while. um but I don't, I think there is a boon element to WotC losing control of the market in that sense.
I, I tend to agree with you. I think you're pretty. I think you hit the nail on the head, actually. And I'm persuaded by what you said about Critical Role not being the catalyst, but a symptom. I think you're probably correct on that as well. AJ, you have any thoughts for us on it? You're sitting back like,
Oh, I'm just very familiar with the whole OGL thing because it's it's right in my ballpark.
Yeah.
Into my career and my decisions around whether I was going to support the company during all of this because it was my content, that I was putting out.
Yeah.
And I decided no, I wasn't going to. So I had to change up my content and try and survive. Um, and then now I'm back into it again because basically all the original staff at Wizards of the Coast got sacked. So who am I raging against, really? It's just the corporation now. So Hasbro has they kind of acquired D&D as a side benefit when really they were buying Magic the Gathering. And so everything that they've done that has been a boon for them in regards to publishing D&D books has been gravy. And they're perfectly okay with settling back now and opening it up to third-party publishers coming in and using their platform because they're an IP selling company, not really a creative company. Well, Hasbro, I mean. They make plastic toy products and make stories to make more products, to make stories to make more products. So that's what they do. And they've been doing that for the last 100 years. So it was an interesting experiment. Thank God it's over. And yeah, we've got a much more diverse third-party market, which is great for everybody. No longer are we, pinning all of our hopes on one canoe, as we say in New Zealand, one waka. Don't pin all your hopes on one waka. We've got a rising tide, which is lifting all of the third-party boats as well, and that's a more robust market because it's more general appeal that you were sort of against before. When it comes to a gaming market, you want a general appeal and lots of avenues funneling people in that help all of us. So first they find the market in some way through some product that they find, and it could be the most weird, quirky cover of a book that they just pick it up because that's interesting. Tentacled monster having, maybe there's something secretly hentai in here that I can sneak a pick at. Oh no, it's just some sort of role playing game. And then they find Dungeons and Dragons and Critical Role and all this archive of legacy stuff, and they find our channels and our products through it. So it's all, yeah.
I think there's a good point there about decentralization for certain, because I mean, so D&D kind of has had a slow decline since
Ever.
I want to say
Forever. It's always been slowly
it's
declining.
somewhere around the OGL scandal. I would say there's been kind of a steady decline in, and when I say decline, I mean a decline in the people buying the books, I think,
Yeah.
because I don't think they're releasing sales numbers for the new books.
Yeah. From what I heard, 5.5 was vastly underperforming in comparison to the 5th edition books.
And also a decline in the quality of the books. In my opinion, I've read some of the newer ones and I wasn't incredibly impressed with some of the new content. But I think in that decline, you're seeing like simultaneously a rise of things like Shadow Dark, Axe. I apologize, I'm blanking. What is your system called?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, Super Atomic.
Okay, Super Atomic. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing a rise of all sorts of indie systems, and Horde Wars is on that list. Like, lots of them are coming up, and so people can kind of find their niche audience or their niche game. And that was something that there were always indie games, but it was never so easy to find the one you want to play because there are so many of them. And now it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit easier to find your way around the hobby now, I would say, because it's not just like, if I go to my game shop and play and say, I want to get a game of Shadow Dark together, there is a 70% chance, I'm going to say, that the people I'm talking to, they're like, oh yeah, Shadow Dark, okay. Whereas 3 years ago, if I said, hey, I want to get a game of, oh, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another RPG on the same scale. But like if I said I want to get a game of another like third party non D&D RPG together, people would be like
Legends of the Five Rings. For example.
Legend of the Five Rings. Yeah, they would say let's just play D&D, right? Why learn another system? But now people are looking for more systems now, I think.
Yeah.
And this is why, so this is actually a good topic to kind of bring it back towards women's inclusion in these games. This is a good thing, I think, because you don't have one game now trying to appeal to everyone. Because one game appealing to everyone is bad, because you have like dudes that want to have their Conan fantasy and they want to slay dragons and save princesses and play with other dudes and play like something that that is very in tune with like their masculinity. That's a weird way to say it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas you have people that want to play it in all sorts of different ways, and now there are different games for them, and it doesn't have to be like one game has to accommodate that, and it has to accommodate, well, we want to adopt this little pet sheep and name him Sam, and we're gonna love him forever, right? So one game doesn't have to accommodate all that anymore, because there's like a lot of different styles of play, a lot of different systems, and I think that is overall a boon for the hobby, and women's inclusion in it. All right, I've monologued. I'm sorry. Go on.
I will say, from it's noticeable when you see the third party games, which are just pure whimsy these days. The cute little forest creatures. It's like it's like a children's novel, Wind in the Willows sort of thing, where the characters are fuzzy hedgehogs and the problems are not vast. It's whether we gather sour apples for the cider for the pie that we're baking, and the paint. And the township has got a famous pie eating contest, and so all the pies have got to be set to a certain. These sort of plots and campaigns, you can't really do them justice in Dungeons and Dragons, but this third party market, we've seen a lot more whimsical games, and that to me is like a litmus test for yep, there's definitely a lot more women involved in gaming. I can sort of tell.
It reminds me, there's literally a game called Pugsmire that where you like play dogs and you go off on adventures in terms of, but you have the armor and everything. I get exposed to all these new games because my dad is very big into the hobby and has been collecting games for like 40 odd years, and it's just like you go through, and I feel like this is why one of my biggest stances on is if you don't like Dungeons and Dragons lore, there's so many other games to play. Why would you try to like erase the history that was there? Not to get it into an entirely different conversation topic, but like there are so many games now where if you don't want to play in, say, I hope I'm getting the name of it right, Dark Sun.
Yeah, Dark Sun.
Dark Sun. If you don't want to play in the Dark Sun world, you could always go play you can play Pugsmire. You can play Bunnies and Burrows, which was like I think it was a Harn spin-off. You can play like an RPG based on Alien, the movie, like by Free League. There's so, is it on your shelf right now?
Yeah. Got Blade Runner over there. Yes, I've got lots of.
There's just so many. There's just that I think has just been a boom because you have a huge market now that's primed because of things like Critical Role, and that's why I agree with Harmony. I can't necessarily dislike it entirely because it's not their fault that they were successful at what they did. I'll never begrudge any artist having success as someone who would someday like success as well. So they've built a market essentially, and there's plenty of people looking for stuff and plenty of people almost using it as a gateway drug to just come into these hobbies. And I just think that there is just so much room in the hobby for different games and different players and things like that. So, yeah.
All right. And we're at the 2-hour mark, so we are going to wind down the show. Do you guys have anything you would like to add? Last thoughts? Anything in the show? I don't know. Maybe you're thinking of your cat or something. You want to add that for some reason. Like whatever you want to add.
There is one thing I'd like to plug, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily a project I'm directly involved with right now, but right now, the Battleborn magazine, and I've shared a couple times on Twitter, so I'm assuming at some point people are going to get sick of me talking about it. The Battleborn magazine has launched their Indiegogo project about a week ago, and they are already 75% backed.
Do you want to link that in the chat?
Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
But essentially, it is a speaking of kind of the OSR kind of thing, it is an old school sword and sorcery style zine, run by a gentleman who worked, I believe, for Anvil at one point, Sean Korsgaard. I hate that I might have said his name wrong, but I see it on Twitter more often than I hear it heard out loud. It is. I am actually lined up as one of the authors for their second and third issue. And I am really just excited to kind of see how that proceeds. And it's not a super expensive. I just popped this in the chat.
Patty linked it. Patty got it.
Patty got it.
Patty.
Thank you, Patty.
I
was trying to talk and type at the same time.
No, I understand. I can't do it either.
Yeah, no, it's I'm just excited for it. It's not super expensive to get it into, to get your first issue, and it helps build another great sword and sorcery zine out there. And Eric Wag, who I think a lot of people know on Twitter, is going to be featured, I believe, in the first issue. There is going to be a story from Howard Andrew Jones, who passed recently in the first issue as well. So supporting that project allows both that issue to come out soon, kind of on time. Um, stretch goals allow authors to get paid a little bit more, which is always nice, and it guarantees that like the second and third issues are going to be proceeding on schedule. So as someone who, if everything goes well, will be featured, my first sword and sorcery story will get featured in the second or third volume. I'm just very excited for the
Oh,
project.
that is
So
exciting. Well, thanks for
yeah,
sharing.
yeah.
And AJ, you got anything last you want to talk about? Anything that didn't come up that you wish would?
Not
We can
really.
go on for
No, I'm
another
just
hour.
yeah, no, no. I think we could talk for an hour or two about just all the indie RPG games that are
Mm,
out there
I
right now.
know, right?
There's
yeah.
just too many, too
Um,
many.
there's a lot
Um, yeah, but other than
more
that,
than.
just I'm working on videos as always. So I've got
Mhm.
the complete guide to the Aboleth video coming out soon, and I'll be producing some music videos, really hard hitting metal D&D metal music.
Wait,
Just
are you a
fun.
musician?
No, no, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No, I write lyrics and I get Suno to do the music. Then I mix it together
Oh,
because
okay.
I'm not mostly a sound editor.
Oh
So I
man,
put
I
my
thought you were like
backtracks.
a metal musician for a second. I was
I
like,
wish, but
hold
I haven't.
on.
I haven't got the time to learn all. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
I can write lyrics and I can sing a bit, but yeah, I'm not a musician by any standard.
that's
I
fair.
just make noise that people like.
That's fair. All right, check out AJ Pickett's channel.
Yeah.
It's actually a really informative channel for me. Like I used to watch it all the time
It's my whole
when I was
shtick,
like
man.
getting into Faerun. He's got a lot of Forgotten Realms stuff on his channel, a lot of monster stuff.
The Bob Ross
Definitely a
of
great
D and
channel.
D.
All right. Well, thank you guys both for joining me today. I think it was a kind of off the wall, but actually really productive conversation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of good stuff got talked about here. So thanks guys for watching. Thank you Alyssa and AJ for joining me. And I will be back next week. I believe I will have DM Blackwall back next week.
Nice.
We are going to be talking about monster stat blocks and Horde Wars. I believe. I
I'm excited
he
because
has a method of monster stat blocks that he wants to share. I know you're going to be working with him soon.
yeah,
Or
that's
are.
actually going
Yeah.
to be my after I finish Beyond the Juniper Trees. I think the plan is to create a collection of 6 to 8 short stories, actually set in the Horde Wars like lore and things like that. I'm actually going to be my first Horde Wars one shot next week, or the session 0 anyway. So we're going to build characters. So uh, the
Exciting.
the goal is to build a character every time I do a short story, and that way I can actually use the character sheet to like create the story so that everything's actually in line with the system, and everything that they're able to do is in line with the system.
Well, it's been a wonderful conversation,
Yeah,
guys. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Like I said, I'll see you next week with DM Blackwall. And farewell, friends.
Bye.